my name is Julie, and I'm with Julie Walton Health, and I'm really excited because today I have one of my closest friends and one of the most amazing people I know on, and her name is Dr. Shannon Kell, and she is a professor at Mount Royal University. So, hi, Shannon.
Hi.
So Shannon she has her Master's of Education, and she specialized in outdoor education. And she also has her Ph.D, where she focused on curriculum and instruction. Shannon also has two little kids. They're the same age as mine, so I can remember the ages really easily. They're 5 and 3. And she also has a stepdaughter too. And how old is she again?
She's 10.
Oh, okay, that's awesome, because then she can kind of touch on personal, not just book knowledge, which is fantastic, because sometimes they don't always translate. So basically today, I really wanted to bring Shannon on because, well, not only does she actually live it, but right now I'm hearing a lot of questions from moms that are wanting their kids to be active, and not only with activity, but also with education and trying to balance things. Some moms are working, some moms there's 2 people at home, but sometimes they're by themselves. So basically, Shannon and I are going to have a little bit of a conversation today about getting our kids active, getting them outside, why that's important, how much, and how can we be realistic right now so that we also don't burn out, and what can we do with our kids right now, and just resources, support, encouragement, and that's kind of what we're going for today.
Sounds good.
Okay, so Shannon, what can we do right now to support our kids as far as activities, being outside, all of that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot we could do, which sometimes gets overwhelming. And so I'd like to start off by saying, keep it simple. We need to remember that our kids like simple things. They have great imaginations. And so sometimes that what we think will be boring as an adult, they will just run with it. And I forget that. I often think I need to plan an elaborate, adventure. And really, if you give them a few pieces of wood in the backyard, sometimes they can play for hours. So I want to start by saying, keep it simple and don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah.
But remember too that, if your kids are at the age where they do need to be in Zoom calls and doing some schooling, that really needs to be balanced with activity. Like, I think of myself as an adult, and I am just burnt after a day of sitting in front of the computer. You kids are the same way. Absolutely. So keep that in mind as well. Some simple things we can do is, like I said, find some loose parts. And by loose parts, I mean like appropriately aged things. So we won't be throwing necessarily hammers and screws and nails at our 3-year-old. But we found some old pieces of wood in our garage, and the kids build things just piling them and leaning them on different things in our yard. And that's gone a really long way. So you don't need to spend a bunch of money.
Yeah.
You don't need to online shop. Those things are really helpful, and being outside is key too for us. I know not everybody has that luxury, but there are ways you can get outside and still get the benefits of being outside without having a yard. If you're indoors, some of the things that we've found really helpful have been just creating a bit of a space for them to be kind of rough and tumble in a way that, again, adults might not appreciate, but it really goes a long way, especially if they just need 20 minutes to sort of somersault and wrestle a little bit and not bonk their head on.
And like tumble into it, and awesome.
Yeah, and we have all kinds of toys. I really don't want to admit it, but we have so many toys, and they don't get touched because they just love playing and imagining and pretending. And of course, I'm speaking of the younger age groups because that's what age my kids are, but really just keeping it simple has been super helpful for us in these times. Yeah.
So if people are looking for sometimes people are looking for okay, I want to tick some boxes, and obviously it doesn't work like that. Like, some days are going to look different than others, but if people are kind of looking for, maybe like a range of time, like how much activity do you think, say maybe our younger guys and then maybe the older guys, really need to function at their best so that they can do the school, that they, get what they need for their health, but also so that that the parents can kind of know, okay, well, great, they got that in today, or hey, they didn't, and I'm noticing some behavior stuff. So maybe tomorrow I'm going to try and get a little bit more in.
Yeah, it is a balance. And like you said, some days are better than others. So let's keep
Yeah.
that in mind too. We might have some days where we don't do much and other days where that's all we do is run around.
Yeah.
I think, and what we know is the key is to kind of do it in chunks of time.
Okay.
So we can't expect a kid or an adult to be at a task for a long period of time.
Yeah.
The same way we can't expect them to be active for this super long period of time. So research has shown, and I've also tried it,
Yeah.
doing smaller chunks of time. So maybe we say half an hour outside, then we come in for half an hour and we sit down and we do a task, whether it's schooling or whatever we want to call it. And then maybe we do another half hour or an hour, or you chunk it so that it's manageable. And also then the people in your life, the kids, I'll say, get used to having some transitions.
Yeah. Oh,
That's really helpful.
we were talking about transitions the other day.
Yeah, and having a timer is really helpful with that. Say, you have 5 minutes left so that they
Yeah.
can get their head around the idea that this is going to end and we'll start something different. Because I know as an adult, if I'm busy doing something and someone came and just ripped it away from me, I'd be pretty upset too.
Yeah.
So to
Absolutely.
have a bit of an idea of time when they can't really tell time is important. So we found that chunking it into manageable times. Now, again, you mentioned that the age is important. So for younger kids, we often think they need less activity maybe because they're smaller. That's not always true. They just need different amounts of different things. So actually a great resource is the Participation website, and
Awesome.
it's backed by the CSEP research. So you'd be familiar with that. It really lays out the age of your child, and then it talks about how much sleep, sit time, sweat time, and screen time each age category should
Nice.
be allowed or should be prescribed, really.
Yeah.
And so I always think more is better, but that's not always the case, because if you get too tired of running around, you get grouchy then too, right? So balancing it is really the key. Younger kids, they say 60 minutes of physical activity a day minimum, and we're talking like not necessarily heart pumping the whole time, but running or walking or wandering
Yeah.
around. The older kids, we're looking at 60 to 90 minutes would be a really great target. I know sometimes that seems unrealistic if you've got resistant teenagers. Others probably get way more than they need.
Yeah.
So it's a balance and
Yeah.
finding things that they're interested in.
Yeah.
And sometimes people just want to do things together, which is really tricky right now. You can't be with your friends necessarily. So what can you do as a family that can keep that activity level up for everybody?
Yeah, no, that's really good. And so, you were mentioning, I actually saw like when you were kind of talking about like schedules and trying to manage it with like work and kids and things like that. I noticed that you have some time where you're just like doing an activity with your kids. And then you said that they are a lot more likely to, play on their own outside where maybe you can get a little bit of work done.
Yeah, I think compartmentalization, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or bad thing, but it seems to work for children. Especially they need to know when they'll have your full attention, and then they need to know when they're supposed to not bug you, really,
Yeah.
and play by yourself. And if you can teach your child to know the difference, it can go a long way. So yeah, in our little schedule, we've made sure to have one-on-one time, or like kid and mom time, or whatever that looks like, with undivided attention. So I literally put my computer away, I put my phone away, and I know and they know that we're here together in this moment. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's half an hour, sometimes it's an hour, whatever it is you can manage for that day in that chunk of time.
Yeah.
Then they need to know, though, that okay, next is now you go play with your Lego or whatever it is, because now I need to be uninterrupted. And it seems that took a few weeks to get into the training of that.
Yeah.
But now that we've got that established, and I say, okay, now when I'm on my computer, not to bother me.
Yeah.
They figure it out pretty quick.
Yeah.
They're smart. They're smart little people.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's a really good tip. Like, if we kind of give that half attention for, you know, half an hour, 45 minutes, and then we expect to have this like, okay, I need to do my work now. Well, it's kind of that give and take piece that is really important. And I think that's a really good take home. And after you had mentioned that, I tried it and I was like, oh wow, that's helpful. Because I mean, putting your phone down for half an hour is and like just being in that moment is a lot easier than kind of being in and out and then not actually getting anything done in that next 45-minute block or whatever. So I thought that was a
Yeah.
really cool point.
Yeah.
So can you tell us, you've been posting on your Instagram things like 1,000 hours outside. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
So what you do is you literally just go to their website, 1,000 hours outside, and you can print off a tracking sheet. You have the option of
Cool.
printing off 1,000 dots or 100, and we've opted for the 100 at a time, and we'll just keep on adding more sheets as we go. And the winter was a struggle, I'll be honest. If we got out for 1 hour, probably in the dark, it was a struggle. But now that summer is coming and it's warmer out, we're finding that we're losing track. How many
Yeah.
hours were we outside today?
So much easier. Oh, so nice.
So great. And you know what, the thing that the dots or the 1,000 hour challenge has really helped us with is just always having it on our mind. We need to get outside today. The kids really like coloring in the dots, and so they're aware of it, that yeah, we should get outside. They might not know why it's healthy to be outside, but they like coloring in the dots. And for me, it's just about like getting them aware of it. Get outside. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's been really cool.
that, and I like what you said. It just like kind of reminds you to be aware of it because sometimes you can, especially with we're both working and a lot of parents are working, that you're like, okay, it's fine, let's just play inside and things like that. But if we can, even just being outside, it doesn't even like playing in the garden or playing in the grass or whatever. It doesn't have to be like biking all day long, but just getting outside and getting that sunshine. Can you tell us a little bit about the research? Because that's like, oh man, that's your jam. So this is gonna be probably hard for you to like dial in the small version. But as far as like for parents, like giving, how we always talk about like the why in so many different things. Like, okay, we all know that being outside is good, but when we have that why, it can be so helpful because then you're like, okay, I know that getting outside is beneficial because of A, B, and C. What can we give parents as a tool or some tips?
Yeah, so some things that I won't dive into, but I want to mention is, of course, when we're outside, we're less likely to be on a screen. So that's great.
Yeah,
So that's one of the benefits that has this whole other area of research. Also, getting outside sometimes helps people connect with nature and feel this sense of like
yeah,
needing to be a little more caring when it comes to like animals and trees and things. So I won't get into that either, but I want to mention it.
that's a really
But yeah, the things that resonate with me mostly right now is thinking about behavior. And we know that when we get outside, it allows us as people and as our brains and as our attention span, it allows us to rest and relax. So that's the biggest thing that research has shown us. It's called directed attention, that everybody uses all day long. Anytime you're doing a task or you're focused on something, you're using up this directed attention. And if you think of it like a bowl, it's full in the morning, and
yeah,
as we are on a screen or as we're doing a task that requires concentrating, it starts to drain. And when we go outside, because there's a lot of research why, I won't get into it, but because we're outside, it uses a lot less energy
mhm,
to just function and be. And so our bowl starts to fill up again.
yeah,
We're doing things that aren't necessarily taxing. We're doing things that are kind of relaxing maybe or enjoyable. And so we gain, we refresh our batteries, really is what it is. And so the more we can do that, the better. And how that manifests then is we'll see fewer outbursts and anger issues, and we'll see people be able to think things through a little more
yeah,
logically. You won't just jump to the first thing that comes to mind. It helps you problem solve better because you can think more clearly. So there's a lot of science around how your brain restores when we're outside. There's
yeah,
also science around the stress
mhm,
and stress relief properties of being outside. So let's say you're really stressed, you just had a really bad meeting with somebody, or something confrontational happened.
mhm,
To bring yourself back down to that like level of calm again, it's a lot quicker and more efficient to do that outside. So you should step outside,
Yeah.
look at a tree or look at the
Yeah.
grass, feel the grass on your feet,
Yeah.
and you will come back down to that level much more quickly. And
Oh,
science has shown that.
yeah.
So there are tons of reasons why we should go outside. But I have found in my kids, it helps their behavior regulate.
Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
much. And me too. And me too.
Oh, for sure. Because like, and I'll like fight it and I'll be like, okay, like really do like, how much is this going to make a difference? And then I'm like, oh, okay. For everybody, this is beneficial.
Yeah.
And I can tell the days where like I try to cram in maybe a little more screen time so I can get a little bit more work done, or like and sometimes we have to do that. That's just life. But I can definitely tell like on my kids, and then by the time my husband gets home, like things are a lot more calm when there's just more outside time. So
Yeah. And I
yeah.
just want to, like, I want to make sure I mention that we're very fortunate. We have a backyard. We have lots of things at our fingertips. But if you don't, some ways that you can bring the outside inside is also helpful. So,
Yep.
if you can stand the mess, have a little table of sand or some sensory items like dry rice, and just letting kids touch that and dig in it is a huge stress relief, kind of like having a stress ball, as an adult.
Yeah.
You might even find yourself wanting to go play in the sand, and it is really therapeutic. So
Yeah.
there are little ways that you can bring outside inside if you don't have all these things at your fingertips.
Yeah, no, that is really awesome. And I like how you talked about that like stress relief, because you know we might not think about it, like we might think about how it's impacting us or adults because small kids at home and we're stressed out, but they feed off that. And so if we can provide ways to help them, because they may not know how to articulate how they're feeling. We were kind of talking about that too a little while back, on we don't always know how our kids are doing. We can try and ask them, but they may not have the language to be able to tell us. And so if we can offer some of these activities for them, and it doesn't have to be like how you said, for extended periods of time, but just like that play, like even if you're just outside sitting in a lawn chair and your kids are playing
Hmm.
in like with some sand or just in the grass, or make believe. Like my kids like to like go and like hide in the trees, and they just like play bad guys, or I don't even know what they're doing, but they're like find pine cones and whatever. And I'm just like sitting there hanging out, and I'm not even really partaking. I'm just present. And then I'm like, I can kind of de-stress a little bit. They kind of rejuvenate and move forward. So
Totally. Well, and what you're talking about really is free play, and there's so many benefits of free play,
yeah,
right? They learn to problem solve, imagine. There's so many different school subjects
yeah,
in playing outside, and I don't want to lose sight of that either, that all these parents are so stressed about teaching their kids and homeschooling, and there are so many lessons to be learned by going outside and just playing.
yeah,
So don't feel like you're selling your kids short by letting them just play,
yeah.
because they will be resilient people by learning to play outside.
That's awesome. So like, okay, because Shannon was a teacher before she became a professor. And so Shannon, like I was talking to a couple other teachers, and they were saying that, like, say for kindergarten, that yeah, they may go to kindergarten for like a few hours, but the actual, because there's so many transitions and free play and things like that, there's probably only 20 to 30 minutes of actual instruction. So like as far as making sure that kids get their education and school time in, can this be condensed a little bit or like spread apart? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you need to remember that the point of school is a lot more than just learning to like read,
Yeah,
write, and do math, right?
yeah,
So it's about learning to socialize, it's about learning to follow instructions, it's about getting along together and exploring things that interest you. So that's actually the last point I just made. That's what we've been running with, is
yeah,
what interests you. And you can pick up on those cues from your kids when you're outside even or inside.
yeah,
Like they'll say, what is that, or they'll ask a question and you can just run with it. And so we've been looking at bugs, and I
cool.
mean, I don't really like bugs, but they seem to like bugs. You can count bugs, you can talk about colors of bugs, you can start categorizing them into sizes. Like
Yeah,
there are so many ways you can just take that simple concept of bugs.
yeah,
And school do school
Yeah.
with them. And so you're right, only a few minutes in kindergarten, for example, is actually spent on curriculum learning. But there's so much more hidden curriculum there that we can hit on as parents at home even better than a school can, because we have the opportunities of one-on-one time with our
Yeah, and
kids.
like
So
directing what they're interested in. I like how you said that, like listening to what they say. Like Lucas was asking about electric eels and how, like how does electricity work? And I was like, I'm gonna have to Google that. But
yeah.
but yeah, I was like, oh, that's really interesting because I actually don't know. Or I learned about like how it was actually from Wildcrats. Not gonna even lie
Yeah.
in it. I friggin' love Wildcrats. I'm like, I didn't even know about like why they needed to suck our blood. And it's anyways, it's irrelevant, but it was really cool because then we like looked it up and whatever. And I was
Well,
like,
you're right. And that's how we learn naturally, is you ask a question and you follow it for a bit, and this is where you might want to watch some screen time videos, because we don't know the answers, and then it'll lead to something else, and it'll lead to something else, and then we just learn kind of like this, right? We
yeah,
don't learn in a straight line, like
yeah,
half an hour math, half an hour
yeah,
social studies. So that's what's really cool, and what a great opportunity we have at home, to learn. And you don't feel worried about whether they're learning or not. Everything's new,
yeah,
and everything is learning, even for us. Like you mentioned, I've learned a lot from watching YouTube videos about dinosaurs, for example.
yeah.
Yeah,
Seriously, right? Yeah, like I like Octonauts and Wildcrats. I am like, what? And like I love
totally.
the little National Geographic, like kids. They're like 2 minutes. And I like those too. They can kind of like spur interest and whatever.
Yeah.
So, okay, so now how can we make like how can this be realistic? Like, so say, what if someone is working from home? Like, they obviously everything is a little bit more modified, I guess. Like
Hmm.
people they still have to work their 8 hour day, but it can kind of be spread out in different ways, and everyone has like a different situation. So, how can this be made realistic for parents right now that are at home?
Well, it's tricky. So the way that we keep it realistic is we be real with each other, honestly. I mean, I often have kids on my lap during my meetings, and they're sitting right here, and
Yeah,
people they have to be okay with that. I
yeah,
get that not every workplace is, though. And so if you are stuck between a rock and a hard place, it's honestly, I think having some sort of schedule where you chunk your time. You
yeah,
might need to get up a little early to do some work before your kids get up.
yeah,
We also have an hour and a half in the middle of our day that's called quiet time, and our kids know that they
yeah,
go to their rooms, they stay there. I don't care what they're doing,
yeah,
as long as it's quiet. They
yeah,
even sleep sometimes. But
yeah.
that gives me an opportunity to really get some work done if nothing else is going well
Yeah,
in the
you're like, I
day.
have that time that I know that no matter what, that I can get. Yeah,
Yeah, and also if I need to schedule an important meeting that needs my full attention and nobody running around behind me, that's when I schedule it. And you might need to do that more than once in the day. You might need to have quiet time in the morning and quiet time later. And it does take
yeah,
some training. It takes training. They don't just automatically go, oh yeah, I'll stay in my room for that long.
yeah. Sure,
Like, it
mom,
takes
no
a little
problem.
while.
So
Yeah,
what do you
start
do? Like,
small.
so say if someone's wanting to implement that, but they're a little bit nervous because their kids like they're trying and they like keep coming out, and what do you do when you were like kind of implementing that at the beginning?
Yeah, well, ours was easy because it transitioned from nap to just, okay, you don't have to nap, but you got to stay in your room. But I realize not everyone has that luxury. So you could start with even saying, look, you can be in your room with a screen for half of it, and then you'll have to poke in and turn it off
Yeah,
halfway through. Or start small, say, okay, it's going to be 20 minutes, and then you're eventually going to just make it bigger and bigger and bigger till
yeah,
it's the length that you need. We let the kids pick out a special toy before quiet time that they get to take to their room that
yeah,
they normally aren't allowed to play with in their room. So that makes it special.
yeah,
Everyone's going to be different. My son sometimes wants to do quiet time outside, so his quiet time is in the backyard because I trust him.
yeah,
Not so much my daughter. I wouldn't
yeah.
let her do that.
I know. Yeah, yeah,
But it's also a really good break for them. I find our day escalates with stress by lunch, and so we need that quiet time
yeah,
to de-escalate. And then when we come out of quiet time, everyone's a little more calm again. They just
yeah,
need that headspace. So start small, start with things that seem special,
yeah, absolutely.
maybe a snack, whatever it works for your kid, and then you can work your way up to having something that's a good chunk of time for you
Yeah,
and works
no,
for you.
that's perfect. That's awesome. Do you have any other really good resources if people are looking for some outdoor activities, like you were mentioning participation for activities? Anything else as far as for activities or worksheets or things, like if someone just wanted some creativity on what they're doing with their kids for maybe the younger and then maybe the like 10 age group, do you have any of that?
You know what? Honestly, I find some of the best resources are on social media.
Okay.
So I follow some really cool groups called like Outdoor Learning.
Oh, yeah.
If you just put that into your search, there are some really cool groups. You want, I always look for pretty large groups. I don't want a group of like just 10 people because then I wonder like, how useful will this be for me?
Yeah.
But you can find some really big groups that people post things. This is what we're doing.
Yeah. Just kind of get
Sometimes
that, yeah, inspiration to see what other people are doing, and then you can kind of see if you think that that will work for your kid. And yeah.
yeah, and you can just filter it, go through it. And so I usually sit down once a day and go on to a specific group that I'm part of, and I just kind of go through the feed, and if something stands out to me, I go, yeah, we're going to try this.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just make a note of it because I don't always go back and find it.
Yeah.
So I make a little note of it.
Yeah, that little bookmark or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so I honestly find that those social media groups are probably my biggest
Okay.
resource. If you
And quick.
also, what's that? And quick, you're
Yeah.
right, and accessible.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not everyone's on Facebook. The teenagers would think that's not cool, but as grown-ups, we can do that. And then you can find age categories too that work for you. Some other great resources are also found. Like for example, with Alberta, we have an early educator online framework of different ways that your child learns, the framework that like a child care center would follow. And so even if you just skim it, it's a huge
Yeah.
document, but if you just skim through it, you get some ideas.
Yeah.
And I find if you even go on Alberta Education website, yeah, I don't want to read about social studies, but sometimes you'll find the resources link, right? And you know that those are tried and tested and that people have put their stamp of approval on them. And so those are really great places to go. But if you're looking for quick and easy and accessible and a bit more conversational, I would go on social media.
What can you leave people with as far as like encouragement, keeping things real? Because a lot of people are pretty stressed out right now, obviously day to day. But I think there's two things that like I was talking to some other professionals about, was that we look at people's thing on Instagram and we see their highlight reel. And I think there's two really awesome things about that. One, that we can be encouraged by it instead of being like, oh man, I'm not doing that. You could be like, man, that remembering that that is a highlight reel, and that a lot of people don't post the breakdowns, a lot of people don't post the like fighting to get school done, that, and remembering that those are the highlights of their day, but being okay and inspired by it. Because you know what, if I had a couple hard days with the kids and then I got out for an awesome bike ride and I post about that, I want to celebrate that win because I'm like, yeah, I did that, but the last 2 days maybe weren't great. So for people to celebrate the wins and being like, yeah, we did a bike ride and we had less screen time today than yesterday. It still may be more than I wanted, but I'm going to take that as a win. So what else can we kind of leave people with to kind of encourage and uplift?
Well, it, people have been saying this time and time again, but remember, if you're healthy, that's a win,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So keep that in mind because alternatively, you could be in the hospital
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So if you're healthy, that's a win. That's a huge win. And how can we be even healthier? Well, that's really up to each family.
Yeah.
But remember that, so I'm preaching, get your kids outside, let them play. But
Yeah.
let's take that advice as adults too. If you've got a 15-minute break or something in your day, don't run to your social media. Run around outside with your kids or take a walk around the block with your dog or whatever that looks like, because that will go a long way.
Yeah.
And if you make that a habit in your life, just keep it simple. I think you'll find that you start to feel better and things start to just balance out a little more naturally for you and your family.
Yeah. And I don't know, it was really cool. Shannon sent me at the beginning, they kind of developed a little routine. Do you mind if I share that? That
Yeah, go
little,
ahead.
I'll share that too with you guys. So at the beginning, Shannon shared this little routine with me. And at first I was kind of like, oh, like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, that seems so structured, but my God, it is awesome. Like, I don't follow, like I kind of made it to make like to suit my work schedule, and some days are different, but man, when I stick to that, I it's so much better. Like, because then I'm like, okay, it's kind of approaching this time. And I don't know, it was so helpful for me. And seeing other people that are doing it and sticking to things and being encouraged by it, and seeing that it is realistic to, get our kids active and get outside, but being okay that some days aren't going to be awesome, I think is also great. So thank you so much for all of your wisdom and all of your points. I think it's going to be really helpful for people. So thank you so much for talking with us today.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. And I welcome anybody to reach out. Yeah, I'm around. I'm here.
And she lives it, you guys. It's amazing. Like, I follow her. Well, she's my friend, so I mean, whatever. But I've gotten so many great ideas. Like, I'll just see something that she's done on Instagram, and I'm like, it's freaking brilliant. Like, she did this that hunt you did,
the scavenger hunt. Yeah.
And so she had these 2 little backpacks, the water, the snacks. So when they were done, the quiet time, and then I just went and printed off 2 papers, like, of things you could look for on a walk. My kids like biking, so we just went on bikes, and we would stop and we would look for things on our walk, and they would get to tick them off. And I think Nolan only had 6, and then we said 12 or something. And it was awesome. It made our whole afternoon. And yeah, she just posted it, and I was like, I'm gonna do that tomorrow. And it really just helped. It was kind of just an idea, so that I didn't have to think of something, and it kind of ticked all the boxes. We like being outside, the kids like being on bikes, so it fit for us. So yeah, so thanks for continuing to encourage other people and showing us that we can do it. So awesome. Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks, Julie.
Okay, I'll leave Shannon's information below if you guys want to reach out. Okay, thanks, and have a good day, you guys. And if you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure you give it a like and subscribe because it really helps out my channel, and it helps so that I can bring on more amazing people like Shannon, and then I can provide you guys with some more recipe resources and health tips to, just help you guys out. Okay, have a good day.